Imagine buying the Brooklyn Bridge and then being arrested for trying to set up toll booths on it. Sounds like a joke, right? Well, for George C. Parker, it was business. This is the unbelievable but true story of one of the boldest con artists in American history. He didn't rob banks or pick pockets. He sold some of the most iconic landmarks in New York, and people paid. He fooled immigrants, businessmen, and even police officers. But how did he do it? But how does someone even begin to sell a public monument? George C. Parker was born in 1860 in New York City into a world full of opportunity and chaos. The city was a melting pot of nationalities, stories, and schemes. It was a place where fortunes were made and stolen. Little is known about his early life, but one thing is certain: he knew how to read people. By his teens, Parker had mastered the art of charm. He could read a face like a book and play emotions like a violin. He wasn't violent. He wasn't loud. He was clever, smooth, friendly. At a time when most Americans were chasing the dream, Parker realized something most people missed. Dreamers are easy to sell to. He began small, selling fake tickets to shows, creating phony business opportunities. But the real money, he realized, was in real estate, or at least the illusion of it. And in a city as big and busy as New York, no one had time to double-check a deed. But why the Brooklyn Bridge? Why that landmark in particular? The Brooklyn Bridge was more than steel and stone. It was pride. It had taken 14 years to build, and when it opened in 1883, it connected two worlds, the old borough of Brooklyn and the rising power of Manhattan. It was a marvel of engineering, spanning over 1,500 feet, and the longest suspension bridge in the world at the time. Parker looked at it and saw something else: opportunity. He posed as a descendant of the bridge's designer, or as a city official, or as a private investor. Depending on his target, the story changed. But one thing stayed the same. He always made it sound like they were getting in on a secret. He'd say, "This is an off-the-record deal. The city wants to privatize the bridge quietly. You're getting in early." He set up fake offices with desks, letterheads, legal documents, every detail perfect. Sometimes he even had assistants play secretaries or lawyers to back up his story. He convinced his buyers, many of whom were immigrants from Europe or Asia, that owning the Brooklyn Bridge meant they could charge a toll, and people believed him. One man spent his life savings, $4,000, equal to about $130,000 today, to own a piece of the bridge. He planned to charge carts and pedestrians a few cents each to cross. Before sunrise, he showed up with workers to install a toll booth. The police stopped him within an hour. He had the deed in his pocket. It looked real. He had no idea he'd been scammed. Were people just gullible, or was there something deeper going on? Let's step back for a moment. In the late 1800s, over 5,000 immigrants arrived at Ellis Island every single day. That's nearly 2 million a year. They were tired, confused, desperate for a fresh start. Many spoke little English and trusted anyone who looked official. Parker didn't sell lies. He sold hope. He promised people something they couldn't resist: the fast track to success. And when people are emotional, excited, hopeful, scared, they don't ask too many questions. This is the foundation of every con. As modern psychology shows, scams don't work because people are stupid. They work because the brain wants to believe, especially when the offer solves a problem we already have. Parker used trust as his currency. He made people feel smart, special, chosen. And once they felt that way, it was easy to close the deal. The brilliance of his scam wasn't in the lie. It was in the way he wrapped it in truth. And the bridge wasn't the only thing he sold, right? Parker didn't stop with the bridge. He sold the Statue of Liberty, not once, but multiple times. He told one buyer that it had outlived its symbolism, and the government wanted to take it down. For just a few $1,000s, the man could keep Lady Liberty alive. The buyer cried when he signed the check. That's how real it felt. He sold Madison Square Garden, saying it was a failing venture and the city wanted to lease it to private owners. One man from Chicago paid for a 10-year contract to run it as a circus venue. He even sold Grant's tomb, claiming he was Ulysses S. Grant's grandson. In a top hat and tailored coat, he walked buyers through the monument, shaking hands with fake security guards on his payroll. He also sold the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the New York Aquarium, and chunks of Central Park. Sometimes he ran multiple deals in a single week. It wasn't just the scam, it was the show. Every sale was a performance. So with all that activity, how did he stay free for so long? Parker had a secret weapon. He was a dozen people. Over the years, he used countless names. James J. O'Brien, Martin Snyder, Mr. Roberts, and even Lord George Parker. Each time he was caught, he gave a different name. With no national ID system, it was easy to vanish and reappear as someone new. One time, he was arrested and convinced the police he was a government agent, testing how easily people could be tricked. They believed him and let him go. But eventually, the curtain fell. In 1908, he tried once again to sell the Brooklyn Bridge. This time, the buyer was an undercover police officer. He was finally arrested under his real name. The court wasn't amused. The judge called him a danger to honest society, and unlike before, the charges stuck. He was sentenced to life in Sing Sing prison, one of New York's most infamous institutions. But even behind bars, Parker was Parker. Guards reported that he tried to sell them parts of the prison. "Want to buy your own tower?" he joked to one. What did the world learn from Parker's wild career? Parker's story became legend, not just because of what he sold, but because of what it revealed. His cons exposed how easily people could be manipulated when they believed they were getting ahead. He never used violence. He didn't hack systems or pick locks. He hacked people, their dreams, their desperation. He showed that any system built on trust can be broken with confidence and charisma. Law schools study his case to explain fraud. Psychologists use him to explain human vulnerability. His life inspired movies, books, and jokes. And his legacy lives on in a single phrase: "If you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you." But haven't scams only gotten worse since then? Parker would feel right at home in the 21st century. Today's scams don't happen on street corners. They happen online. They come through emails, text messages, AI-generated videos, fake investment, websites, and more. In 2023, the US Federal Trade Commission reported over $10 billion lost to scams, a record high. Investment fraud, romance scams, fake real estate listings. It's all Parker's blueprint, upgraded for the digital age. The tools have changed, but the psychology hasn't. The next Parker might not wear a top hat. He might wear a headset or hide behind a screen. But his goal is the same: to sell you a dream that isn't real. So how do we protect ourselves and each other? George C. Parker teaches us one simple truth: if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. His story is funny, it's wild, but it's also a warning. About greed, about trust, about how far people will go when they think no one's watching. Always check, always ask, always doubt the deal of a lifetime. Because somewhere out there, someone's still trying to sell you the Brooklyn Bridge.